Hey, what's up, everyone? This is David Bell. Welcome back to the Pocket Mastermind podcast. My guest today is Jamie Martin. Jamie is the founder and managing director of Correct Careers Coaching. He's also an author and a podcaster and a speaker and many other things. We cover an awful lot of ground in this conversation, from Jamie's own career journey from mobile phone salesman to entrepreneur and now award-winning career coach, amongst an awful lot of other stuff. We discuss the importance of documenting your achievements along your journey, the power of goal setting, how to go about it, the importance of taking care of yourself, and so much more. So I hope you enjoy this episode. If you do, remember, please leave us a review and subscribe and share it with your friends. And with that, let's get on with the show. So the big question is this: how do ordinary people like us that weren't born into money create true financial freedom, take back control of our lives, and live a life full of purpose, meaning, and fulfillment? That is the question, and this podcast will give you the answers. Join me and follow along as I learn, apply, and share the strategies that the wealthy know and use that the rest of us weren't taught to create true financial freedom. My name is David Bell, and welcome to Pocket Mastermind. Jamie, welcome to the Pocket Mastermind podcast. How are you doing today?
I'm very well. Thank you very much, David. Thank you for having me on the podcast show. Delighted to be here and have a fruitful conversation.
Yeah, welcome. I'm really looking forward to the conversation. I think we'll probably touch on quite a few hot topics through the talk today. But before we get into any of the detail, let's learn a bit about your journey. I think one of the topics we're definitely going to be covering here is kind of like transition from employee into entrepreneur, if that's something that people are looking to do. And you've got quite an extensive background, so it'd be good to share that with the people listening, and then we can touch on some of the more specific topics and some guidance for anyone who's currently listening today.
Yeah, it sounds great. And any self-help advice we can give to the younger generations and current millennial workforce now, and everyone really, would be great to share.
Yeah, great. So let's learn a bit about you. Where did your journey start, and where are you now? What do you focus on?
So I suppose I've had a good career background, and I've learned a lot and built a lot of character over the years, and I think I would what's transpired to get to where I got to today is probably from my mindset, but I think that takes time for everyone to really decide what your strengths are, what you need to develop further, having a good morning routine, setting up your habits. So I'm sure we could talk about some of those topics throughout. But my background really started in education. I completed college and went on to university. And at university, I did a psychology degree. I thoroughly enjoyed that. And I think I was fortunate. I did make the right decision to choose something I was passionate about. And that is something I would say to anyone, looking to do further education, is definitely find a topic you are interested in. And don't get me wrong, there were some modules in that degree I found more challenging than others. And there was others I was, really excited about. And I think if you're interested in something, naturally you're gonna want to learn, you're gonna want to work harder and want to achieve more. So that's really, some advice I would give in education. But I will say towards the end of that, I did actually, I made an error, and it's good to learn from your mistakes sometime. I went to do a postgraduate certificate. And at the time, I was going to do, even further than that and go to a merit or a doctorate. But I decided to stick with the certificate. And I went to opt for forensic psychology. And after the first semester, I decided that actually that probably wasn't for me. And I changed to business psychology. So as you can imagine, a bit of a palaver changing and getting you and trying to catch up. But then I made the right decision to do that, and then I finished with the certificate because I think at that point I really wanted to get into the business world after 4 years at university. But during my time at university, I was fortunate to start a career really in sales. I worked in retail at the very beginning. And then I had a 2.5 year, because I worked through sort of my university breaks for a telemarketing business. And I was put on the Vodafone campaign. And I always say when I do speaking, if you can sell mobile phones, you can sell anything.
I've been down that route as well. Yeah, I sold mobile phones many years ago. Yeah,
only because it's just you really got to be determined, I think, and resilient, which are really good mindset traits to have. But I enjoyed what I did, and I did quite well. And I decided, post university and a good stint I had with the business. Well, what do I want to do next? And I fortunately found myself in a media role. So it was our sort of local newspaper and online space they had. And I really enjoyed that, with regard to advertising. It made me learn a lot about the business world, the media world, it being forever adaptable, and you need to also be yourself quite innovative and use different ways of building relationships and selling techniques to, obviously create the sales. But more than that, I found media fascinating because I do feel like, you should invest in those areas, because if effectively no one's aware of you as a business, how are they going to, work with you? And that's, an area that everyone I think battles with in the business world about cash flow, where to invest, how much to invest. And I would really say probably about, 10 to 15% of the profits, the revenue, the gross sales you make, because you need to keep generating that, visibility and cash flow. So I had a bit of a time with that company, and I probably would have stayed, but I was quite ambitious at the time, being so I'm a millennial, so I was probably in my early 20s, and I was very ambitious, very driven. I was happy I did my degree, and I kind of wanted to utilize it a bit more. So I actually then was fortunate enough to work for a recruitment company, which was a global recruitment company, one of the UK leading recruitment agencies. And I had no experience when I started with the company. And so fortunate, they actually, really do look at your characteristics, your mindset traits during the recruitment process.
Mm-hmm.
And I started with the business, and I think that was great for me because for recruitment it is about trust. Like and trust is that very renowned sales term, and it is about that. If you're going to be recruiting someone for a business, which it can be quite costly, but not only just money, time and resources, and the knock-on effect it has within the business to culture.
Yep.
And so for me, having a background in psychology and a grounded in sales, in telemarketing and media sales, I feel, it helped me to build a career in recruitment. And I had about 6 years with the business, and I really had, a really great time. But don't get me wrong, there was certainly an emotional roller coaster during that time.
Sure. It's a challenging environment, isn't it?
It is. I don't know if you've done any recruitment yourself in your background.
I've got. I've definitely worked with recruiters quite a lot,
Yes.
and I also have got some friends who run a recruitment business.
Fun.
So yeah, I've had the privilege of seeing it up close, quite a lot. So yeah, it's definitely a challenging environment, and quite often in circumstances like we're in now, the market tends to flow in the recruitment business. Either it's a recruiter's market or it's a candidate's market, and you're the guys in the middle of all that that's going on. So you've got to try and accommodate the both parties, which is always challenging.
Yeah, absolutely. You've got to be sort of very malleable to, the environment, the business environment. So that means you yourself need to do your own research, your own due diligence, and make sure you are aware of what's going on, specifically in the industry sector or maybe level of personnel you recruit for. But yeah, you are right. Maybe don't quote me on this one, but a lot of people do say that recruitment is being one of the hardest sales roles to do. So I think I'm glad I was quite successful and achieved a bit in a few areas. So rather than telling about the full 6 years, I'll just give you, a few achievements I did. Because I think for anyone, listening to this, after like a period of time, whether it's for education, or whether it's you've moved on from jobs, or whether it's just like a personal hobby or project, you should really take the time to reflect, and realize what you did achieve during that time, because many things do take a lot of years, and also a lot of hard work, and efforts put into it. So you should look back and reflect, and reset to say, this is what capabilities I've developed, and what can I utilize moving forward in your next passion, shall we say. So as I said, at the beginning of recruitment, I had no experience. I started on a cold desk, so that means you're not really given a warm client base. You are going out there doing sort of the cold calling, shall we say. And within my first year, I was the top newcomer within the Southwest and won an award, and actually second in the UK for the accountancy division. And bearing in mind, there is quite a lot of employees within the business, which was really Recruitment I worked for. And then my second year, it's just nurturing the relationships and learning various different areas of recruitment. I moved internally probably about 2.5 years in, and I went to work on the sales division. And during my time at Reed, I was very fortunate to have a lot of training and development and investment within me, and I'm really grateful for that. I completed a 4-year recruitment course, a management academy course. I did an NLP diploma course and various other training and development courses there. So I really, continued on my personal development, and I really enjoyed that, because my goal at that point in my career was to get to managerial level. It's what I wanted to do and achieve, and I had a passion, I think, for probably from the psychology background, understanding individual differences, training and development, and I did the post graduate certificate in business psychology. I learned a lot about occupational psychology, psychometrics. So I felt that was quite useful in the industry I was in at the time. After a lot of hard work, I was fortunate enough to become manager, and it was good. And we set up also a new sales division. I set up a new sales branch later on, and recruited a sales team. And I think from being quite a good recruiter and doing well by yourself, and what you need to do to achieve that, and then managing a team and also recruiting, it was it was a lot of hard work. And because you're also learning, providing training and learning to consultants who have had also not much experience in the industry. And I suppose the way I went to do that was it provided case studies and testimonials and achievements of what I did do. So it is believable. Anyone going into a sales related role, it's always like a lot of prerequisites you're trying to live up, and the market just change, especially if there's like we had Brexit during the time I first became manager, so it was quite a tough time to recruit. And obviously now we're all experiencing a pandemic, so the recruitment industry also is having a knock-on effect. But anyway, towards the 6 years later, I recruited for various different types of industries, probably over about 20 sectors, all different types of personnel, right up to COOs, sales directors. I even recruited an international role in Germany, FTSE 250 companies. I was a record holder, and like I said, I won awards. And now I can look back and talk to tell people about the experience when I speak, but also tell them the journey I had. It wasn't always just fantastic. There was a lot of hard work, a lot of hours I put into it, and months where the sales wasn't where I wanted it to be. So you have to go through that journey in any career, I think. But yeah, I had a really great time, and I learned a lot within the recruitment industry. Now what I do in my own business, I'm glad I had that experiences of being able to change industry, talk to all different types of personnel, and work with various different types of sizes organizations, because you really learn a lot of how to build relationships. So go on.
I was going to say, what was it that after a period of time, was it, I think, you've touched on quite a lot of good things that I think we can definitely, I'd love to come back to again in a minute. But one thing I'm quite interested in, after 6 years in that business, what was it that made you decide you wanted to go and do something for yourself?
Yeah, it's a good question, and and I do get that asked quite a lot, because obviously I probably would have stayed as long as I could, and to probably director level, because I know what I'm like, But around that time, sort of my life changed in some areas. I have a family member who isn't too well. And I suppose you start to look at life as a wholesome, I worked probably at that time about 10 years in business to business sales. I worked hard on my degree and various other projects I've done. I've written a book, for example, and that was quite a chunk of my life. So I used a lot of my younger years to really achieve these goals that I wanted to do in my life. But then I found I spent a lot of time away from, say, family, friends, and my own personal life. So I think at that point I decided, I was naturally working a lot myself, not because the company made me, but because I'm just such a driven individual. And I just had to kind of look at the work-life balance I had. So I decided to leave the business and, and leave in a great way, and just say that, I just wanted to really have a career break, which I did. I had 4 months off, which was great. I went to did a little bit of my own traveling, and I did some, for my different hobbies like Tai Chi, etc. So just to have a bit of a relaxation time. And during those 4 months, I decided, okay, so what do I want to do next? And I suppose from my education and setting up your own branch in a recruitment industry, it is like kind of running a mini business, shall we say. I always kind of felt myself as a bit of an entrepreneur, and I really wanted to investigate that area of my myself and challenge myself in that area, and decide maybe now is the time to set up my own business. And anyone looking to do that, I think there is a few elements you do need to probably have, whether it's experience in the field you're going into, also some savings would be helpful, because it is a lot of investment at the beginning of the start of a business. But I took that career break to do some, a lot of research on where I wanted to take myself next. And I also at that point did a coaching diploma as well, just to continue educating myself. And my passion really was, I think, sharing and training others to perform better and succeed better. Like I had a career in sales. So I set up Correct Careers Coaching, and everyone always asks, why the name? It's more of a brand perspective. I was thinking of the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey. Start within the end in mind. So in about 5 to 10 year plan I had initially, I wanted to grow pillars of the business. And I wanted to look at, my message really is employee retention. So you would have the sales training side of it. Naturally, I'd be working with, all different size businesses and the sales team to help them perform better, as I did, succeeded in the recruitment industry, learning different modern sales techniques, such as using social media, also looking at the full sales cycle and how we can improve on that in a bit more of a digital age and a modern world, as well as looking at, because I was a millennial in a corporate, sort of company, middle management, and I had a mentor, which was great. And I feel everyone does need some sort of mentor or coach to really support them during those times, just to have a sounding body, with an objective rather than maybe a subjective kind of response. And also to look at employee engagement, because I think employee retention is a really big focus of mine, and where that those values and passions come from is, I really enjoyed what I did in the recruitment industry, but I was recruiting a lot for sales individuals, and you would hear loads of different reasons why turnover of sales professionals were leaving. I mean, in my 6 years, I probably recruited over about 60 different individuals, mostly in sales, but some in the finance and accountancy as well. And I thought to myself, okay, so I'm hearing a lot of reasons why people are leaving. Why not look at how we can help with the training and development of individuals within the business, looking at employee engagement, maybe looking at career coaching. And that was the reason why I set up the business. And over a year later now, I've been running Correct Careers Coaching, and I've just recently won 2 sales training and sales strategy awards, which is really delighted to receive that.
Congratulations.
Thank you, David. Really appreciate it. But it just goes to show, the hard work, it can pay off. But don't get me wrong, that journey in the first year was very challenging. So yeah, here I am now. And, I know we were talking before this, the podcast, about other areas you do in business. And one of them being, I am a voluntary enterprise advisor for the Careers and Enterprise Company. And that is looking at helping younger people, with career guidance and advice. I think, if we look back and when we were in secondary school or maybe even college, where we set up for the business world. And if you don't want to pursue a career in academia, do you have the right tools, knowledge, resources to go into business on your own, in collaboration, or even progress within in a big size company. So that's really where I am. And I think from you could probably think from the different elements I've had in my background, it has helped me to run a business now and also be very adaptable, especially over this year we've had.
Yeah, I think that there's a lot of great stuff. I'd love to come back on some of the points that you made along there, and some of the things I picked up that you've done in you've gone through in your own career that I think is worth calling out for anyone listening. And one of those key things throughout your career, there's been a theme of continuous learning, continuous development, and I think it's important to call that as one of the key things out, because for anyone listening to this now, what gives you the greatest opportunity going forwards in your future is how you develop as an individual. What skills are you adding into your own arsenal, so that when you go out into a marketplace, whether it be to start your own business or you're looking for a new role, that you're moving forwards on each time you do that, because you now have the skills to do that. What do you think? Is that just something that's always been in you to kind of continuously grow and develop and keep learning?
Yeah, I mean, for me, yes. I've always, been fascinated about continued learning, probably from a personal development side, I would say. But I also see the value it provides. I mean, talking about my university at the start, I didn't actually go on to do a graduate placement, but I really think my education and the transferable skills I could, use from education to the business world really helped. So I'm certainly glad I spent the 4 years doing that, although it cost me quite a bit of money. But,
I think of all of the transferable degrees, psychology is one of the better ones, and particularly when you then moved on to do business psychology and occupation, anything that's kind of applied, particularly in the psychology area, everything that we do all day is psychology, right? The way we're communicated to and the way we communicate all involves psychology. And I think if there was one of the kind of like sciencey degrees that, from my own personal perspective, I'm very interested in psychology. I never actually studied it formally, but I've studied it informally, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Because it's fascinating, right? How to watch how humans interact is an entirely psychological process, all day, every day, and everything that we do.
Yeah, 100%. I think that's what fascinated me about the subject, really. And I mentioned about understanding individual differences, because I think there's we're tabula rasa in philosophy. We're all born with a blank slate. So how do people develop the way they are, the personalities they are? And that comes really from everything from child psychology, but all the way up to the experiences we have throughout our life, really. But I think even from a training and development perspective, which is why I decided to pursue my business and career in that area, was because everyone has different learning styles. Whether you've got visual, auditory, kinesthetic, and it's about understanding. You may deliver in a certain way, but is the recipient or the trainee understanding it and processing the information in their own right? And my dissertation was actually based upon memory processing of knowledge familiarity, but I used sound distraction as sort of the other element. But during that time, learning a lot about memory was really fascinating, because if you're not really sort of processing the information, and whether it's like you're writing it down, or whether you need self time to reflect on it, or whether you you're more of an auditory listener, or whatever it may be, which is why podcasts like your Pocket Mastermind is fantastic, because some people would prefer to listen to these types of learning new stimuli, and they can really process that information. And I think that's an area, whether we investigate that more with the Generation Z, or even in the business world, is absolutely vital. You can do e-learning courses, or some people prefer to do activities to learn, and that's what really fascinated me. And I think one other reason is because I actually do, not many people know this actually, but I do actually suffer from sleep, and I know that's a big population out there who also suffer from sleep. And I did a little bit of study on sleep, but only minimal within psychology, because it was, for me, my own passion was like, well, why is is happening to me? How can I help that, that side of my well-being, self-actualizing, reality that, it's affecting me in some areas. It's hard sometimes when you really have a bad night's sleep and, trying to run your own business or whatever you do in the day. So to understand a bit more about that, and I suppose if you went on and become a sleep specialist, then you would find out a bit more about it. But I didn't. So yeah, I agree with psychology, and I think the other note to touch on about learning. I would definitely encourage anyone, whether it doesn't matter what business you're in or what level of your life you're in, definitely continue listening to podcasts, looking at YouTube videos, educational TV, and also reading a lot of books. I do a lot of reading now, especially a lot of business reading, and I really think it helps because you're effectively learning from others who have had that experience or that journey, and they're sharing that information like we are today effectively to help others. So if the content is out there, why not continue learning and helping yourself in those areas?
And books are cheap. Whether you read them physically or use Audible or some other format for ingesting the information, it's important to remember that when formal education ends, it doesn't mean that you stop learning and stop growing. It's what makes a difference, and your horizons and your own ideas are based off of the knowledge that you have at any given time. So the more you can feed into yourself, the more ideas and different perspectives you're likely to have, and who knows where that will then end up leading you. But I think if you can make your world a lot bigger through the use of books and, like you say, YouTube and online courses. There's plenty of ways in which you can self-educate, and I think it's very important to try and keep that growth process going. The saying is that everything in this universe is either growing or dying. Well, if you're not learning, then you're not moving forwards, and you don't want to be in the dying category, in my opinion.
I think you've just touched on Einstein's theory of doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. Yeah. And what we've got to realize now is that, and I think, why my business is doing well within the social media side is because, the business environment, the world has changed, even before this year. And we do need to, because, the millennial generation, 1980 to 1995, and the Generation Z post that, they are actually brought up in that digital age, utilizing social media. And I've written an article on social media and the way millennials buy, because I thought the buying behavior of millennials is very fascinating, because that then can apply to the business world, not only for a training and development of onboarding staff at that generation, but also if you're a business and you want to, and they're your customers, which a lot of them are, because a lot of them are in business nowadays and setting up their own companies. So, and one of those things were that, I've got a statistic here that 75% of millennials actually do research the company or maybe the salesperson or the owner of the business on social media before deciding to buy the service or product from them. Now, that is fascinating, because I think a lot of anyone would probably, when you're going to buy something on Amazon or other sites, you do read TripAdvisor, etc. You do read reviews because you want to see what people have said, and also you want to have a good experience, whether that's going for a meal or a holiday. But to understand that, if we're talking, say, a business transaction with service or a product, and you are being researched on social media, now if you as a person or your company is not on social media and they're not utilizing it, then will one of your competitors be the option of choice? And that's why I found that series I've written as an article series, as blog, is on my LinkedIn profile if anyone wants to refer back to some of those articles, was really fascinating. And I'd also give you an example of speaking about continued learning. So I really appreciate being on your Pocket Mastermind as a guest today, David, but I was also a guest on another show in the summer, A Better HR Business, and we did a podcast episode, and Ben, he approached me afterwards. We had a great conversation, and he focuses on supporting HR businesses and business growth in that area. And obviously I do selling and selling techniques and social media. And he said to me, do you want to collaborate? Do you want to synergize and create an e-learning course? And at that point I was like, absolutely yes, because I see the value of learning in different areas. It was on my sort of goals list, shall we say, to do, but I didn't acquire the technical abilities to be able to do that at that point in time. So working with someone that I didn't really know, and we've just created over the last couple of months an e-learning course which has been launched last week and already made sales. So we're delighted, because it just goes to show that, from, like you said, about if you're not exploring and investigating other areas, you're not continuing to challenge yourself and improve. I probably wouldn't have been in that situation, and that could be an absolute different journey and venture for me moving forward. So hopefully, David, we might create something after this show. You never know.
Sounds good. The other thing that you touched on as well is the recording and taking time to recognize your journey as you've gone along and where you have grown and the achievements you have made. Because I think I'm sure you would have seen this through your recruitment career, that most of us really only take that time to reflect when suddenly we need to produce an updated CV, and it may have been quite a long interval between the last update and the one you're now making. And I've heard it a million times. I don't have any achievements. I don't know what to write. All of these things. Well, if we could get better at being in the habit of planning and recording against our plans on a regular basis, we'd suddenly have a document that we would be able to use on a regular basis that would help us to recognize the growth and the achievements we have made. And it seems to me that it's something that you've kind of naturally done along your journey as well.
David, that is an absolute great point. So my advice to everyone, if they take one action point away from listening to the show today, is really do write your achievements and successes down throughout your career, because you naturally, I remember, we will forget things, or we'll forget the finer details. And like you said, if you are, say, for example, changing jobs and you're trying to remember all what you've done in that time you've had with that business, you might not remember all the details. And I remember, I was in a group and I said to someone, tell me one of your achievements. And she told me what it was. And I said, is that on your CV? And they said, no. And then I said, so if I did ask you the question, how would I know? And as a potential employer, if you don't see that information transparent, then you actually might not get even shortlisted to the interview stage. So it's absolutely vital. I don't know where that has come from me. Personally, I'm quite an analytical person. I do investigate psychometrics quite a bit. I've tested myself in quite a few of them actually, and I'm an affiliate of also one as well. But I actually think maybe from the psychology background, it's really good to know your own strengths and limitations. And I know that I prefer to write a lot of the stuff down. I'm analytical. It's how I read, it's how I research, and it's how I remember information, especially when doing the exams during my degree. And I think that's probably where it naturally come from, that I just would record, my achievements along the way. And I would say that if I had to put, one element down to why I did achieve it, it was that reason. Because it's not about saying what you tell people. You have to show evidence of that. And that could be your recommendations on LinkedIn. It could be your Google reviews. It could be your case studies. And case studies highlight successes in statistics and numerical format. So if you can present that to someone, whether it's you're going for a job opportunity, or whether you're just going, you're trying to work with a business, you can provide evidence of what you can do, what you've achieved, but what your customers say about you. And naturally, I think it's about what people say about you when you're not in the room is probably the most powerful business relationship advice I would give nowadays. So yes, definitely write things down. And there is some statistics out there to say that if you write your goals down, 42% of them are more likely to be achieved. So David, do you write your goals down?
Yes, 100%.
Well, there you go.
One thing I also learned, I forget the study, but I think it may have been Yale, did a study quite some time ago that found only about 3% of people have goals written down.
Yes, yeah, and there was the Harvard one, talking about that. I think it was actually probably Harvard, or similar to that one as well. Yeah, and you're right, and the ones who did were certainly the top earners at the end of it as well. So
it's hardly a surprise there's a correlation between what they call the top 1% and then 3% having goals written down, right? So, and then you have surprisingly 40% attainment rate. It all starts to add up. So I think the first thing that everybody needs to do is really start to think about goals, and it's something it's a process we're not taught at school. And the number one thing I hear when I talk about setting goals is I don't know what I want, and I don't know how to do it, and I don't know what the process is, and that's the stumbling block. And I think we get caught up very much in the finer detail, and ultimately stops us getting anything done. And probably my advice here, and I think one thing worth touching on is in the current climate, there's a lot of people are adversely affected, and through that there may be a requirement for some people to change the direction that they were heading in. Maybe the direction they were heading in wasn't conscious in the first place. Maybe you've ended up somewhere, and now you're faced with I've got to change. The first thing I'd recommend, and it'd be good to get your thoughts on this, is start to think about, and it sounds like this is something you did, how do you want your life to look? Rather than focus necessarily on specific things that you want, focus more on the picture, the vision of your life. And it sounds like that's something that you did when you were working flat out for a recruitment company, and you started to take stock and say, well, actually, how do I want my life to look?
Yeah, some really great points there, David. There are a lot of startup business advisors to help businesses, and there's the education system, also, I'm sure, to give people a good start on their journey. And that mostly is a conversation around goals, as you touched on. And I think that's because if you don't have written goals and set goals, what you want to achieve, whether it's in a 30-day period or in a year's time, then it's kind of like, what are you working towards? And I find that you can easily lose track a bit then. And I say something called resetting. So each week, what have you done that week? What worked well? What didn't work well? What did I want to achieve that week? Does that work into my 1 year, 3 year, 5 year goal plan? And you really need to kind of look at that and have them visual and be able to adapt them, because naturally the business world, the education world is adapting all the time. And I think you're right, we need to really identify what our passion is, and make sure we know the journey we're going on. Yes, naturally that will change along the way. It has many times in my career, I'm sure for yourselves as well. And sometimes we do things at the time which we look back and think like, was that the right decision? But at the time it was, what we felt like we wanted to do then. But yeah, so I suppose when I was in the I found recruitment by opportunity. I didn't necessarily knew I was going to go in that direction, because probably much to my parents' dismay, why didn't I become a psychologist after 4 years of studying and working hard, and the investment I put into it. So I naturally changed from education, but then my passions were to go apply it into business. And once I was in the recruitment company, I did know at that point that I really wanted to be a manager. That was my goal, and I worked, and the steps I took in that role were to become manager, which I did successfully become. And I'm glad I knew what I wanted, because if I didn't, I probably wouldn't have worked as hard as I did, or made choices I did at that time. So you really have to, probably, I would say, a bit of self-reflection time, and whether that's you do that often, and you work with, say, well-being resources like meditation, or you work with a coach or business advisor, or a career guidance advisor, whatever it may be. But you really need to think about what your passions are, because like I said at the very beginning of this, you're naturally going to be more interested in pursuing. But I also think you definitely need to identify what you're good at and play to your strengths, and what you need support with, because then you can work out what resources you need to help you develop those capabilities in that area. But yeah, without your goals written down, are you going on the path you want to go on? And I think we'll leave that as a question mark to the listeners out there.
Exactly. I think it's a great question, and we should all ask. And I think one other thing to consider is if you're not sure exactly what you want, write all of the things down that you definitely don't want, and that starts to get the things flowing. Because if you know exactly what you don't want, then probably what you do want is likely to be the opposite, and that could get the ball rolling, and to start to think about, well, actually, if we took away all of the limitations that we see within ourselves, what would we do? How would we spend our time? Who would be in our lives? All of these kind of things, and start to really build that vision. And then you can say, well, am I heading on that path? If not, what do I need to do to correct course?
Definitely a pros and cons list is needed most of the time. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So anyway, so let's think about anybody who's, like we said, now, sitting right now, whether they're affected or otherwise, and they're thinking, well, I'm not really, I don't, they've answered that question, and they're saying, no, I'm not on course for where I really want to head. What would you say would be a sensible process to start thinking about, if what they want to do is either a career change and remain as as an employee, or whether somebody's maybe is taken by the romantic idea of being an entrepreneur or not? Where would you start?
I think the first starting point would be to give yourself some space away from the job or the education. I'm not talking for a long time. I'm just talking, it's hard to really think about change, because change causes uncertainty when you're in the midst of doing the role or busy. Like that's why presenteeism and burnout happens, because naturally you're doing the job day in, day out, but you're not really there fully as a cognitive perspective, because you haven't taken the time to have that well-being break. So I think whether it's that you just take a day off and just say, that day I'm going to reassess, because obviously you're not happy at that point. There must have been something to say that you're not happy, and maybe it's beyond your control. Maybe there is changes happening, especially right now, during the pandemic, or whether it's just that you've changed as a person, and naturally we change over years. So I would say, first of all, find that bit of, that free time for yourself, and then I would probably start. I think we touched on probably a pros and cons list would be a good way to start, to make it quite streamlined. What do you like about what you're currently doing now? What do you not like about what you're currently doing now? And of course there are other elements to think about before you make a decision, because whether it may be financially, whether it may be geographical, whether it might be other elements, responsibilities that you have. But I think naturally, if you do find your list is probably more cons than pros, then that is a time for change. And the reason is because the most important person in your life is you, and your well-being may suffer if you are not fulfilling all areas of your life. And yes, change, it can be scary, and yes, obviously, as I mentioned, it can be a palaver in some things, but you've got to think about the end result. The journey you will take will be tough, but when you get through that journey and you come out the other side, and if it was a right decision, or certainly a different decision, if you didn't explore that area in the first place, you would never know if that would make you happier. And I think that's probably what you need to do, is my best advice with that. But one thing I would say, and this is probably from when I was doing a mock interview for the younger people during my enterprise advisor role, is that it was great to see passion and enthusiasm for what career job they wanted, where they wanted to get to. And some of the questions I would ask is, okay, so do you know the steps you need to take during that journey? And they wasn't always 100% sure. So my response was, okay, so that's what you firstly need to do. So go and do your research, look online, look at what this career, your desired career, entails. Do you need a certain education? Do you need a certain experience in a certain area? Do you need a qualification, work experience, whatever it may be? And also not just research the steps you need to do to get to there. Speak to people who are doing that role or that job at that point in time. I think a first-hand experience of someone who is where you want to be, or say you were changing jobs and you wanted to go into a different industry sector, speak to someone doing it, and you can reach out to people. It happens to me all the time on LinkedIn, and I'm happy to give a little bit of time to help anyone with, just because I've been given some time and I really appreciate that. So really go and talk to someone doing it, and then find out what it's actually like. And I think when we talked about at the start, a slight discourse between education and business. Are we really prepared for the business world. And I wouldn't say all the time yes, because education, you're learning the theory, and I suppose unless you're doing an apprenticeship it will be slightly different, but are you actually practically learning and what the environment's like, what skills and capabilities you need to have to be successful in that role? So it's really about having a mentor or coach, or just reaching out to someone and speaking to someone. What is it actually like? And then if they tell you what it's like, how they got there, that's really going to help you in your decision making. Is that the path you want to take?
Yeah, I think that's great advice. And I'd also add on to the side of that is, one element of your life is what you do to earn money, right? And I think the other element that you've got to really focus on, and where our fulfillment often comes, is our sense of freedom and our sense of meaning. What do we contribute? And I think sometimes we think, oh, how is it possible to have a fulfilling and meaningful career and do something that I really love and make money from it? Because I think there's the belief that what you enjoy doing and what you can make money from doing are two different things. But actually, you look at the most successful people on the planet, and they tend to be doing stuff that they really enjoy. And so you've got to try and find that. And I think, whilst you're looking at what do I want to do and then how do I do it, really looking at the foundational skills that's going to help give you that freedom. If you are able to manage your money, then you'll be able to do a lot more with less. It's not about getting loads of money and then coming up with a plan. Build the plan, and then the money follows, and that gives you the stability. If your health isn't in great nick, and like you said about struggling with sleep, and I've definitely had the problem with struggling with sleep over time. When you're tired, it's harder to perform. It's harder to be disciplined. You've got this list of things that you've got to do, or you've got to fit in education or a side hustle or whatever it is alongside what you're already busy, family, and all of these kind of things. It becomes very difficult if your health isn't where it needs to be, and we've got to take responsibility for understanding what makes us well, what makes us unwell. How do we stay in good condition? And then things like how you process the world. Your psychology background is key to this kind of thing, right? You fully understand that how our experiences are our experiences, but how we process them is entirely individual. And having the skills, arming ourselves with the skills to be able to handle those different scenarios and different experiences in a productive and positive way will make the difference between whether we hide our head under the duvet in the morning, or whether we address the challenges that come our way with a positive, with appreciation that actually it's us growing. And so really focus on those core fundamentals of your own personal development alongside the skill and the knowledge growth. More of a vocational side of things is what I would certainly add to that.
Yeah, some great follow-up points, and I quite agree. I mean, if you look at the statistics, if we talk in the business world, that 57% of absenteeism is actually due down to stress, and stress is usually caused by you not being fulfilled, you being anxious, maybe the work you're doing or the situation you're in isn't quite right for you, and naturally that's going to have an impact on your personal life anyway. Having the time off, and everything else that comes along with that. So yeah, it's like you said, for me, advice would be to really focus on your personal development, but also there are a lot of research resources and people out there that are willing to help. So take those steps to identify what it is you want, and then go for it. Why not? You've got to weigh up and do your due diligence, but at the end of the day, you got one life, so make the most of it.
What a great way to end that section on. Before we can wrap up, because I know we're coming close to time, I want to put a few standard questions to you that everybody gets the pleasure of being interrogated with, and get your take on this. So the first one of these questions is, do you have a morning routine? If you do, what is it? What kind of benefits have you gained, and what led you to create it?
I do, David, and I hope you got one as well.
I do,
Yeah,
yeah.
I guess. Brilliant.
I do. I have to say, it does evolve over time.
Yeah.
That's one thing to remember. You don't have to set your morning routine now and then just go through it painfully for the next 50 years. If it doesn't work for you, you got to try different stuff.
Definitely, but I would encourage everyone to have one. It really sets me up for the rest of the day. And even Richard Branson puts his success down to actually working out, and I'm sure that comes from in his morning routine as well. But for me, I do follow something called the Miracle Morning, and this is by an author called Hal Elrod. And I would say anyone who's interested in the morning routine, do go and research this. He's got a fantastic story of why he set it up. But for me, you follow 6 habits in the morning, and you can tweak the time you spent on these habits. It's all about setting your habits and doing them often, because naturally it becomes routine. But the 6 habits of the Miracle Morning is an acronym called SAVERS. So basically you wake up, you be silent, or you meditate. So you're really sort of, like we said, sort of self-actualizing yourself in the morning, what you want to vision for the rest of the day. Affirmations, so you can speak this out loud or to yourself, maybe what you want to achieve that day, or speak aloud what you're good at that day. Psych yourself up if you've got a meeting or an exam to do. And visualization, I did touch on this, but it's about maybe sort of having some sort of motivation board or written goals, or just visualizing what's it going to look like when I achieve that. The 4th habit is exercise, and I do spend quite a lot of my morning exercise, but that does really give me a lot of energy for the day. Reading is always great for your personal development. So whether it's business related books or educational related books, definitely, learning, acquiring new information, new stimuli really, helps your neurons and your brain process and get you sort of infused for the day. And scribing. So again, doing your own writing as well. And whether that's journaling or a gratitude list, definitely be grateful for things. So pretty much, I don't follow it, say, like religiously, but most of the time I'm doing it, in that sort of outset, and it may adapt depending on the day or the length I do it, but it's definitely helped me set myself up for the rest of the day.
That's amazing. Very, very good. Very, very good. I think the reason for asking this question is because so many people have different ways of starting their day, and for anyone listening, you get to pick and choose the different methods. And I would say that those 6 things are probably I can see why they're in there. There's 6 core things, and if you don't do them all every day, throughout the week, I would recommend having them in there as a minimum.
Definitely.
3 books that you would recommend, and why?
So I mentioned this, but Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, an absolute must. He's got some fantastic habits in there. I mentioned, where I built the business on, starting from the end in mind. And synergy is my favorite habit. I'm not sure, or maybe yours is, but synergy, working with others, collaborating, is absolutely key to success. Another book I've read, it was during my management career in the recruitment company, Christopher Maxwell, Lead Like a Guide. Absolutely inspirational. Obviously it's about his mountain climbing journey and his exploration he did, and applying that to the business world. Anyone looking to be a successful leader, probably over the manager concept, definitely should read that one. And I hope you don't mind if I self-promote my own book. Is that all right, David?
You wouldn't be the first.
You don't have to buy anyone, but it's a fiction, and it's a sci-fi fantasy I've written called The Anomaly Crystal. And the only reason why I say that is because, I've mentioned 2 non-fiction books which helped me in my business world, but sometimes take yourself away from your day-to-day and just read whatever genre you really want to enjoy. I enjoyed writing it, and to me it's just, full of adventure and mystery and magic, and it's just, give yourself a break from the daily routine.
Very good. 3 people to either follow or listen to. It could be podcasts, it could be social channels, it could be business leader, it could be anybody.
Well, I'm definitely going to say David Bow from Pocket Mastermind as one of them. But for me, because I'm involved in the sales environment, there are a couple of people I do follow, predominantly on YouTube. YouTube's obviously a massive space to promote yourself, but Jeffrey Gitomer, he's known as the king of sales. Jordan Balfour, obviously from the famous The Wolf of Wall Street film with Leonardo DiCaprio in it. So they are two fantastic, top of the game sales professionals. But really someone who I think is very authentic, and he's fantastic content, and humbleness he puts out there is Gary Vaynerchuk from VaynerMedia, and he's on podcasts, Facebook, videos, LinkedIn, YouTube, whatever. So he's definitely one to really focus on learning from, really.
Suggestions. I would Jordan Belfort's The Way of the Wolf book is very, very good, and also the Audible version's good because he did the narration, so you kind of get the energy, enthusiasm, and slightly some ad-libbing that isn't in the physical copy. So I would recommend that. 3 habits or disciplines that you've adopted, and they're probably going to be part of your morning routine, but if there's anything else.
So repeating things is actually good for memory, as I know. But writing goals down. Please write your goals down once you decide on what they are, and reset to follow them often, and you will achieve them. I think for me, because obviously I'm involved in selling, it can be tough sometimes. So having that kind of, I'm going to say, resilience or grit, but also that drive, find out what you want to achieve, and continue the strong growth mindset and energy to achieve it. But that will naturally come with resilience. And I probably, the advice at that point is, don't take it personally. If we're talking about business, sometimes it is just business, but don't let that deter you from keep doing what you enjoy doing. And again, from one of Stephen Covey's habits is definitely collaborating with others, synergy. Again, I mentioned the learning course I worked with someone on, and various other business ventures I've got, and even doing podcast guest shows, working with others, building relationships, naturally support one another. So synergy is my third habit, I would say.
Lovely. 3 tools, systems, apps, services, you name it, that you now use all the time and you couldn't live without, and you recommend anybody else looking to check out or use. It might help them in their daily organization or their business life or whatever it is.
So for a business to business relationship building channel, LinkedIn, over 30 million companies, 660 million members, and 87 million millennials are on there. As you could, as you could tell, I do teach that as part of my training. But no, LinkedIn, for me, you build relationships. Effectively, it's how we met David anyway. So which is a great story to share. But LinkedIn for the business world, building relationships, being visible yourself, but also identifying and engaging with your customers. Medium is a really useful blog platform, and the millennial buy-in article series that I had written is also on LinkedIn, but I put it on the Medium platform. And I think anyone who's got a passion and excitement for writing, definitely check Medium out, and you can see a lot of good articles and content from various people around the world on that. So that's something to watch out for. And this is really fascinating. I hope you may know this, but not everybody does. There's sort of a website called Crystal Knows.
I've never heard of that.
There we go. And I don't know if you want to share that in the notes, David, but it's you can download it with the Chrome extension, but basically it lines itself to LinkedIn. You do get so many free credits, or you can upgrade and pay for the subscription. But it's fascinating, very, very good how they've developed that. And basically, when you're speaking with people on LinkedIn, it gives you a bit of a synopsis about their personality traits and characteristics, their likes and dislikes, and how to communicate with them as an individual profile. So definitely go try it out. And anyone listening to this, do the trial bit on it, and you'll see how exciting that could be moving forward.
Very good. Never ever heard of that. Sounds like a great tool. Let's hope it's right.
yeah.
The last question is the trickiest of them all. If you could spend an hour with one person, whether they be dead or alive, who would that person be?
Yeah, that is, I don't know, 9 billion people currently in the world, but, how many people, previous to that is a very tricky question. But I'm going to say Winston Churchill, not only because he led our country to victory in the Second World War, which is fantastic news, the UK, but I would say, he was an excellent speaker. He really was able to engage and people aspired to be led by him. And I'm actually just going to finish with one of his quotes, and this is just from memory, but success consists of walking from failure to failure without loss of enthusiasm. And personally, I think that speaks volumes and probably sums up our conversation today, that, you are going to have successes, there are going to be challenges, but as long as you keep your passions, your interests and your enthusiasm, you will walk through the journey of life and make it a successful one.
That is also one of my favourite Churchill quotes. It's
fantastic.
Very, very good. Jamie, thank you very much for your time and insight. Where can people track you down if they want to learn more or connect with you?
Yeah, just to say thank you for having me on the show, David. I really enjoyed the conversation and hope there's a lot of value to the listeners out there. For me, I love building networks, and I'm happy to chat to anyone who wants to speak further about what we discussed or my own business. But my company is called Correct Careers Coaching.com, so you can check out the website. But I do like to connect with people on LinkedIn. So if you just search for Jamie Martin, it's got BSc ons next to it, and happy to connect with you.
Lovely. Jamie, like I said, thank you very much for giving up your time. Really appreciate it. It's been a very enjoyable conversation, so thanks. Thank you so much for listening to this conversation. If you enjoyed it and you'd like to hear more similar episodes, head over to pocketmastermind.com, where you'll also find the links mentioned in this conversation. And if you haven't done so already, please leave us a review. It will really help us to get our message out and let more people know about these episodes. So leave us a review, leave us a rating, hit the subscribe button, and please share with your friends. Until next time, thank you again for listening.